I stand before you tonight not as a soldier, not as a politician, not as a historian of war, but as a witness to screams that were never recorded, a witness to lives that were never honored, a witness to a battlefield where shadows hunt men and men hunt hope. Pokrovsk, a name the world once whispered casually, now spoken with trembling lips. Because in Pokrovsk, revenge flies with wings. Revenge has propellers. Revenge carries cameras and explosives. Revenge watches from the sky. I did not come here to glorify war. I came to tell you what revenge sounds like, when it echoes through the trembling voices of Russian soldiers broadcasting the nightmare they tried desperately to hide. And I came to tell you how I, a silent watcher in the dark, became part of that nightmare, and how I rose beyond it. This is my story. Chapter 1, the signal that should never have been HEARD. It started not with explosions, but with a voice. A Russian soldier's shaky breath leaked through an intercepted radio channel. Static cracked. Metal clattered. Then a whisper. God help us. The drones are everywhere. He didn't know we were listening. He didn't know the world would one day hear his terror. His words were the beginning of a confession, not one of guilt, but of fear. I remember leaning in, listening with an intensity that made my heartbeat sink to the drone rotors above Pokrovsk. Every syllable was soaked in dread. They don't fight us like before, he said. They hunt us. Double quotes. Hunt. Battle. Not attack. Hunt. That single word felt like ice sliding down my spine. You must understand something. Pokrovsk is not a battlefield. It is a place where the sky itself betrays you. Drones buzz like mechanical hornets. They see everything. They forgive nothing. Russian soldiers whispered that the ground felt alive with traps, that every abandoned vehicle could be the last thing they walked toward, that every minute without a drone overhead felt like a borrowed miracle. One soldier sobbed, not cried, sobbed into his microphone. We move in groups. We die in groups. Never in my life had I heard a man sound so young, so breakable, so painfully human. And I, sitting miles away, listening to their terror, felt something I didn't expect. Empathy. Because war doesn't care about nationality. Fear doesn't recognize borders. Death doesn't ask which side you belong to. But empathy is not forgiveness. And what came next? Destroyed whatever sympathy I had left. Their broadcast continued, chaotic, frantic, panicked. But then something shifted. A commander shouted, "Stop running. Hold the line. If you retreat, we shoot you ourselves." My breath caught. So this was the truth. Their greatest enemy wasn't Ukrainian drones. It wasn't the sky. It wasn't the battlefield. It was their own command. Then another voice, barely audible. They left us here. No ammo, no support. We are bait. Bait. Not soldiers, not comrades. Not men. Just bait. For the first time, I felt rage ignite inside me, not for Assad, but for the cruelty of leaders who treat human lives as disposable. How many families were lied to? How many sons were promised glory instead of a grave? And that is when the story stopped being about them, and finally, painfully, turned to being about me. Years before this war zone broadcast reached my ears, I trusted someone I shouldn't have. A mentor, a guide, a man who told me he wanted to build me up. Instead, he used me, manipulated me, promised opportunity, growth, protection. But behind every promise was a lie. Behind every kind word was a trap. Behind every smile was a plan to break me quietly. Much like those Russian soldiers, I was treated as bait. Something clicked in me as I listened to their nightmare. Their fear mirrored mine. Their confusion mirrored mine. Their betrayal mirrored mine. And I realized something. A person can only stay broken for so long before they become dangerous. Pokrovsk taught me a truth I carry everywhere. Revenge is not destroying your enemy. Revenge is rebuilding the parts of yourself they tried to break. The soldiers were not hunted by drones alone. They were hunted by their leader's betrayal. They were hunted by their own choices. They were hunted by the consequences they never believed would arrive. Revenge came for them, not as a bullet, but as justice. And for me, revenge came as freedom. I walked away from the person who used me. I silenced the voice that once controlled me. I rose for every time I was stepped on like a drone in the skies of Pokrovsk. I saw everything now. I missed nothing. Weeks later, another intercepted broadcast surfaced. It wasn't fear this time. It was guilt. A Russian soldier whispered. We were told they were weak. But every time I see a drone, I feel like it knows what we've done. Those were not the words of a monster. Those were the words of a man haunted by truth. And suddenly, the narrative flipped. These soldiers were no longer predators. They were prey to deception, prey to propaganda, prey to leaders who fed them lies and death. And the drones above? They weren't tools of hatred. They were tools of consequence that sometimes the universe chooses strange weapons for justice. In the final broadcast, the one I will never forget, a soldier cried out, "Mama, please tell Mama I tried to come home." Silence followed, a silence that lasted longer than any explosion, longer than any war, longer than any story told about Pokrovsk. Right then, I realized something so heartbreaking, so haunting, that it changed me. War is not fought between nations. It is fought between mothers waiting for sons who never return. And in that moment, I found forgiveness not for what they did, but for what they were forced to become. So why am I telling you all this? Because Pokrovsk is not just a war zone. It is a mirror of betrayal, a mirror of consequences, a mirror of survival. And my own story, my own revenge, is tied to that mirror. Learned this: you cannot control who betrays you. You cannot control who abandons you. You cannot control the battles life throws you into, but you can control what rises from the wreckage. You can become the drone, the watcher, the survivor, the force of destiny soaring above those who tried to bring you down. You can rewrite your ending. You can reclaim your power. You can transform your pain into something unstoppable. And so I leave you with this. Revenge is not destruction. Revenge is evolution. If you've been betrayed, rise. If you've been used, rise. If you've been hunted, rise. Rise higher than the drones above Pokrovsk. Rise louder than the broadcasts of fear. Rise until the world hears your story, not as a victim, but as the storm that ends the nightmare. Because in the end, those who tried to break you become the reason. You become unbreakable.